I was always the one who helped. When my family was in trouble, they knew they could count on me. Whether it was a financial crisis, a personal issue, or just a tough time, I was there. I put my own needs aside to make sure they were okay. But when it came time for me to need help, they disappeared. I kept quiet, living my life, pushing the bitterness aside, and quietly accepting that this was my role in the family. I had to help them, but they didn't have to help me. And then one day, they came to me again, needing something. They assumed I would drop everything, just like I had done for years. But this time, I didn't say yes. Instead, I said, "I'll think about it." And the next day, I showed them exactly why they shouldn't have taken me for granted. I'm Sophie Mitchell, and for as long as I can remember, I had been the go-to person in my family. My parents, Janet and Thomas, my older sister Lily, and my younger brother Jake, they all turned to me when they needed something. I'd grown up in a family where love was conditional, often tied to what you could do for others. But the more I gave, the more they took. I didn't realize how deep this pattern went until I finally stopped and looked at what it had become. Growing up, my family didn't have much. We struggled financially, and I was always the one to step up. I worked my first job at 16 to help with bills, doing everything I could to make sure my parents and siblings had what they needed. I didn't mind. It felt good to be the one they turned to be the one they relied on. But as I got older, I started noticing something. They never seemed to give back. They never seemed to truly appreciate what I was doing. I always thought I was just being a good daughter, a good sister, a good person. But as I looked closer, I realized that I was the one who was always giving, while they took it all for granted. There were countless moments when I felt like I had to be the strong one, the dependable one. When Lily needed help paying for her college tuition, I stepped in. When Jake got into financial trouble because of his gambling, I was there to bail him out. Even when my parents went through a rough patch, I made sacrifices, dipping into my savings to cover their expenses. Every time I did something for them, I did it with love, with the belief that family takes care of each other. But the truth was, I was always the one taking the hit. Always the one making the sacrifices. The breaking point came when I faced my own crisis. It wasn't anything huge, but it was something important to me. I was dealing with a personal issue, trying to work through it, and I reached out to my family for support. I thought they would be there for me, like I had been there for them, but they weren't. No one came. My parents were busy with their own lives. Lily was preoccupied with her career, and Jake, well, he was always in his own world, making the same mistakes over and over again. I had done everything for them, but when I needed help, no one was there. I was forced to deal with my problems on my own, just like I had always done. But this time, it felt different. I felt abandoned. I felt invisible. And that was when I realized I had been taken for granted. All those years of helping, of giving everything I had, and for what? For nothing in return. That realization hit me hard. I wasn't mad at them. I was hurt deeply. I had always expected that my family would be there for me when I needed them, but instead, they were too wrapped up in their own lives to notice what I was going through. I had been the one to hold everything together for so long, but now, when the tables were turned, they were nowhere to be found. I kept quiet. I didn't make a scene. I didn't complain or cry. I just quietly carried on, doing my best to move on from the disappointment. I didn't expect anything from them anymore. I focused on my own life, my own career, and started building my own boundaries. But deep down, I still felt the weight of being taken for granted, and I knew one day they would need me again. They always did. And so, just like clockwork, it happened. One day, I received a call from my mother, Janet. She was in trouble. Again. She needed my help. This time, it was financial. I knew what was coming, but I wasn't prepared for how I felt when it actually happened. The old part of me, the part that always helped, always said yes, wanted to jump in and save the day, like I had done countless times before. But there was another part of me, a part that had finally learned its lesson, that said, no, This time, I wasn't going to drop everything to help them. This time, I was going to make them see that I wasn't a lifeline to be taken advantage of. I wasn't going to be the person they turned to every time they were in need. So, when my mother called, I told her I would think about it. I didn't immediately offer help. I didn't say yes. I didn't give her an immediate answer like I always did. I just said, "I'll think about it." It felt strange. It felt powerful. The next day, I showed them exactly why they shouldn't have taken me for granted. For as long as I could remember, I had been the one to help. It wasn't even something I consciously thought about at first. It was just who I was. Growing up in a family where things were often tight financially, I took it upon myself to support my parents, my siblings, and anyone else who needed help. I felt a sense of responsibility, like it was my duty to step in when things were difficult. I did it because I loved them, because family, in my mind, meant always being there for one another, no matter what. My parents, Janet and Thomas, had a tough time keeping things afloat when I was younger. Money was always tight, and there was a lot of emotional strain as they tried to provide for us while keeping up with their own personal struggles. I saw their sacrifices, and I admired their resilience. But I also saw how much pressure they were under, how their worries would manifest in stress and arguments. I couldn't help but feel that it was my responsibility to lighten their load. Even as a teenager, I found myself stepping in to help. I started working part-time jobs, earning money to pitch in for bills, groceries, and whatever else was needed. I didn't mind. I knew my parents were doing their best, and I figured this was the least I could do. When I went off to college, I kept up the same pattern. I worked long hours at jobs I didn't enjoy, saving up enough money to help my family back home. My parents never asked for my financial support. They would always insist that they were okay, that I didn't need to worry. But I saw the mounting bills, and I knew the strain they were under. I would send them money every month, hoping it would ease the burden, even if just a little. I never thought twice about it. To me, it was just a part of being a daughter, a sister, doing what I could to help. I didn't want anything in return. I didn't expect gratitude or recognition. I just wanted to be there for them in whatever way I could. It wasn't just about money either. I was always the one people turned to when they needed advice or guidance. I was the emotional support, the one who would listen when someone was struggling. Lily, my older sister, always came to me for advice when she was having trouble with her relationships or her career. I always dropped everything to be there for her, trying to offer wisdom and comfort no matter how exhausted or stressed I was myself. I thought it was my role to be that person in the family, the helper, the fixer, and I did it gladly. Then there was Jake, my younger brother. Jake was always in and out of trouble. He had trouble finding steady work and often made decisions that left him in a financial mess. Whether it was a gambling issue or another bad investment, Jake always seemed to need help getting back on his feet. And once again, I was the one who was always there, helping him out with money or advice. I didn't mind. It made me feel needed, like I had a purpose. But over time, it became clear that Jake didn't always learn from his mistakes. He'd take the help, but he never changed. I kept hoping that one day he would get it together, but I kept pouring my energy into him, thinking that I could fix things. Then, things started to shift in my own life. I was working hard, focusing on my career and trying to build a life for myself outside of the role of the family fixer. For the first time, I started to feel like I was finally living for myself. I had my own goals, my own dreams, and I didn't want to always be the one who had to drop everything to rescue someone else. But when things went wrong in my personal life, I realized that my family didn't seem to notice. I was going through a breakup with someone I had loved deeply. It wasn't easy. It was messy and emotionally draining. I wanted to lean on my family, but when I reached out, they were busy with their own problems. My mom was focused on helping Lily with her new job. Jake was in another financial mess. And my dad, well, he was always more reserved, never quite as emotionally available as I needed him to be. I was left alone, trying to process my pain, while everyone else continued their lives without missing a beat. I didn't want to burden them, though. I had always been the one they turned to, and now, when it was my turn to ask for support, I was met with silence. It was then that I began to realize how much I had been giving without receiving. I had spent years putting my own life on hold for the sake of helping my family. But when I needed them, they were nowhere to be found. They didn't know how to help me because, in their eyes, I was always the strong one. I had always been the reliable one, the one who didn't need anything. But I needed something then. I needed them to be there for me, just like I had always been there for them. I didn't say anything about how I was feeling. I kept quiet, like I always did. But deep down, I felt a growing resentment. It wasn't that I hated my family or that I stopped loving them. It was the realization that I had been taken for granted for so long. No one had ever asked how I was doing or checked in on me. They were so used to me helping them that they didn't even notice when I needed help in return. I had always been there to lend a hand, but now I realized no one was there to catch me when I fell. It became clear that I needed to step back and take a closer look at my own life. I had been the one holding everything together for so long that I forgot to take care of myself. I needed to set boundaries, and I needed to stop being the one everyone turned to when they were in trouble. I had to stop letting my family take advantage of me. But how do you stop being the person you've always been? The moment I truly realized how much I had been taken for granted came one evening. Just a few weeks after the emotional turmoil I had experienced. I was sitting in my apartment trying to unwind after a long day at work when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen and saw my mother's name. I hesitated for a moment before answering. I wasn't sure why, but I felt an instinctive shift in the air. "Hey, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could hear the exhaustion in my tone. "Oh, Sophie," my mom replied, sounding tired but familiar. "I need to talk to you. It's about the bills again. Thomas and I have been trying to make ends meet, but, well, you know the situation. We really need your help this time." There it was again, the same old request. My family never seemed to call unless they needed something, and once again I was expected to drop everything to fix it. In this case, it was financial help. My parents, despite all their hard work, had hit a rough patch. They didn't ask for help often, but when they did, it was always in a way that made me feel like they had no other options. I knew they were struggling, but this time, something in me snapped. I had been there for them countless times before, but I couldn't keep doing it forever. I took a deep breath before speaking. "I'll think about it, Mom." It wasn't the answer she expected. In fact, it was probably the first time I had ever responded like that. Usually, I would have immediately agreed to help, eager to step in and ease the burden. But something in me was different now. I wasn't the same person who would blindly sacrifice her time and energy just to please others. My mom paused, probably surprised by my response. "What do you mean you'll think about it? You know how much we're struggling, Sophie. We really need your help right now." I couldn't help but feel a wave of frustration rising inside me. For years, I had been the one to bail them out, to give them what they needed without a second thought. But when I needed help, when I was going through something difficult, they never showed up the way I had for them. I had given, and yet they never seemed to understand the toll it took on me. "Mom," I said, my voice a little more firm than usual, "I understand that you need help, but I've helped you over and over again. I've put my own life on hold to fix things for you, and I'm tired. I can't keep doing this. You and Dad need to start handling things on your own, just like I had to when I was in trouble." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear my mom's soft sigh, and I knew that she was trying to process what I had just said. This wasn't the answer she was used to hearing from me. She was used to me being the reliable one, the one who always came through. She'd never had to worry about asking for help because she knew I'd be there. But now, I wasn't just going to give in to the same pattern. I wasn't going to be their safety net anymore. "I can't believe you're saying this," she finally replied, her voice shaking with frustration. "We've always helped you when you needed it. Why can't you just help us now?" Her words stung, but they didn't surprise me. I had heard this before, the guilt, the pressure, the sense of entitlement. My family had always expected me to come through for them, no matter what. But now, for the first time, I was standing my ground. I wasn't going to let them manipulate me into feeling responsible for their problems. I wasn't going to be the person who always had to fix things just because they didn't want to face the consequences of their actions. Because, Mom, I said, my voice growing calmer but more resolute, you never showed up for me when I needed help. I've been the one who always stepped in, but when it was my turn, no one was there. I can't keep doing this. It's not healthy for me, and it's not healthy for you either. You need to figure this out without relying on me to solve everything. There was another long pause, and when my mom finally spoke again, her voice was soft, almost defeated. I'm sorry, Sophie. I didn't realize how much I was asking of you. I thought you didn't mind helping, but I understand now. Her apology didn't feel like enough. It wasn't just about her apology. It was about the realization that for years, my family had taken my support for granted without understanding the emotional toll it was taking on me. They had never seen the sacrifices I made, the ways I had put my own life and needs on the back burner just to make sure they were okay. But now, I had finally made them see it. And while it wasn't the resolution I had hoped for, it was the beginning of something important. Standing up for myself. I'll think about it, Mom, I repeated, but this time it wasn't a hesitant response. It was a statement that told her I wasn't going to drop everything to fix their problems anymore. I had my own life to live, my own goals to achieve. It was time for me to focus on what mattered to me. I wasn't giving up on my family, but I was finally letting go of the idea that I had to be the one to save them. The next day, I showed them exactly why they shouldn't have taken me for granted. I stood firm in my decision, and when they reached out again, expecting me to swoop in and fix everything, I didn't budge. I wasn't going to keep sacrificing my happiness and my well-being for people who had never truly appreciated what I had done for them. This time, I was choosing myself. After my conversation with my mother, I felt a mix of emotions. I was relieved, finally setting boundaries and taking control of my life, but there was also an undeniable weight hanging over me. I had stood my ground, but I couldn't help but feel the sting of disappointment. It was like I had pulled away from something I had always known, something that had been so ingrained in me for years. For the first time, I was refusing to be the one to rescue my family, and I had no idea how they were going to react. The next morning, I woke up to several missed calls and texts. I expected as much. My family was used to me jumping in when they needed help. They weren't used to hearing, "I'll think about it." The text from my mom read, "Sophie, please, we really need you. Things are getting worse here. Can we talk?" I stared at the message, feeling the pressure start to mount. I knew they were upset. I knew they were probably angry and frustrated, but I had made my decision. This time, I wasn't going to give in. After all, it wasn't just about this one request for help. It was about everything that had led up to this point. Years of giving without getting anything in return. Years of being the one to pick up the pieces and never receiving the same care when I was the one falling apart. It was finally time for me to make them understand that love and support had to be mutual, not one-sided. I couldn't keep pouring from an empty cup. I sat there, staring at my phone, taking a deep breath before I made my move. I had to follow through. This wasn't about being cruel. It was about making a point. They needed to see that I had boundaries, that I was no longer the easy solution to their problems. I had to show them that I wasn't just there to be taken advantage of, so I made the decision to be firm, but calm. I texted back. I understand things are tough right now, but I've already helped out so much. You all need to start handling things on your own. I can't keep doing this. The response came within minutes. My mom called again, but I didn't pick up. She had called several times the day before, and I had ignored the calls intentionally. I knew if I answered, I would be tempted to cave in, to listen to the guilt and pressure in her voice, and give in to their demands again. I had to remain strong, even if it meant facing the disappointment. Later that day, my father, Thomas, called me. His voice, usually calm and steady, was tinged with frustration. "Sophie, what's going on? We've never asked you to do anything you couldn't handle. You've always helped us when we needed it. Why are you suddenly shutting us out?" His words stung, but this was the moment I had been preparing for. It wasn't just about me standing my ground. It was about making them see how much I had been doing, how much I had been giving without asking for anything in return. It was about making them see that I wasn't their permanent solution anymore. Dad, I've helped you all out so many times, and I've done it willingly, but I can't keep doing this, I said, my voice steady but firm. I'm not going to sacrifice my own well-being every time you need something. You and Mom have always expected me to be there, to bail you out, but now I need to focus on my own life. He didn't say anything for a moment. I could hear the silence on the other end of the line, and I knew he was processing what I had said. The silence stretched on longer than I expected, and I started to wonder if he understood, if he would ever truly understand. Are you saying you won't help us anymore? Thomas finally asked, the disbelief clear in his voice. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I can't be your fallback every time, I replied. You have to start dealing with your problems without relying on me to fix them. You've never had to ask yourselves what it would be like if I wasn't there to help. The conversation ended soon after, but not in the way I had hoped. There was no apology or understanding, just frustration. And yet, in that moment, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had said what needed to be said. I wasn't backing down and I wasn't apologizing for it. The rest of the day was quiet. I expected some kind of fallout. My family was used to me giving in, to smoothing things over and taking responsibility. But I didn't reach out to them again. I didn't offer to change my mind. I needed to show them that I meant it. The next morning, I received another message, this time from my younger brother, Jake. His text read, Sophie, you can't just leave us hanging like this. We need you. Please, we don't know what to do without your help. Jake's message hit me hard. He had always been the one I felt the most protective over, but I knew that if I kept giving him what he wanted, he'd never learn how to stand on his own 2 feet. He had been in and out of trouble for years, always looking for someone to bail him out, and I had been there every time, thinking that if I just helped him enough, he'd finally get it together. But this time, I wasn't going to be the safety net. I didn't respond to Jake's message immediately. I needed to let him feel the weight of his words. I needed him to understand that asking for help doesn't mean someone will always be there to fix things. When I finally did text him back, I kept it simple. I can't help you right now. You need to figure this out on your own. That was when I realized the full extent of what I had done. I had finally stopped being the person everyone took advantage of, and it felt good. It felt empowering. For the first time, I had taken control of my own life, and I had set boundaries that I could be proud of. This wasn't just about not helping them. It was about standing up for myself, realizing that I deserved more than being the family's emotional and financial crutch. The days following my decision to set boundaries felt like a slow but significant shift in my life. I knew my family was angry with me, but I also knew that what I had done was necessary, even if it hurt. The emotional turmoil I had been carrying for so long was starting to lift, replaced by a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced in years. Standing firm in my decision felt empowering, but I also felt a pang of guilt every time I thought about my family's reactions. Could I have handled it differently? Should I have softened my response? But the truth was, I had been giving so much for so long that I had stopped asking myself what I needed. I had let the idea of being the helpful one become my identity, and in doing so, I had neglected myself. It wasn't about not loving my family. It was about realizing that I couldn't be the only one who made sacrifices. They needed to step up too. And deep down, I knew that by cutting them off this time, I was teaching them a valuable lesson. The first few days after I set the boundary were tense. My phone didn't stop buzzing with messages and calls, but I resisted the urge to pick up or respond right away. I had been the one who always dropped everything when they needed me. Now, it was time for them to feel the consequences of not stepping up for me when I needed them. I wasn't punishing them. I was teaching them that the support I gave wasn't unconditional, and I wasn't an automatic solution to their problems anymore. Then came the turning point. It was a Thursday morning when I received a call from Jake, my younger brother. I hadn't heard from him in a while, and as much as I wanted to ignore the call, something inside me told me to pick up. Maybe he had finally understood. Maybe he was ready to take responsibility for his actions. So, I answered. Sophie. Jake's voice came through the phone, sounding strained, even desperate. I know you're mad at me, and I get it. I've messed up a lot, but I really need you right now. Mom and Dad are freaking out about the bills, and I don't know who else to turn to. Please, I can't do this alone." Hearing him speak like that stirred something in me. Guilt, anger, compassion, all mixing together. I could feel the old pull, the urge to help, to step in and fix it. But I had made a promise to myself that this time would be different. This time, I wasn't going to be the person who always swooped in. It was up to Jake to face the consequences of his actions. He needed to learn how to handle his life without my constant intervention. "Jake, I get it," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I know you're in a tough spot, but you have to understand that I can't keep rescuing you. I've been doing it for years, and I'm done being the one who has to fix everything. You need to step up and deal with this on your own. You're capable, Jake. You've got to learn how to handle your own problems." For a moment, there was silence. I could hear Jake breathing, clearly not expecting me to respond the way I did. Finally, he spoke again, but his tone was different. "I'm sorry, Sophie. I don't know what I was thinking. You're right. I've taken you for granted and I don't deserve your help. I'll figure it out. I don't know how to do it without you." Hearing him admit that stung, but it also gave me a strange sense of relief. For the first time, Jake wasn't trying to manipulate me or guilt me into helping him. He was taking responsibility for his actions, something I had been waiting for him to do for years. The conversation ended with him promising to figure things out on his own. And as I hung up, I realized that I had finally set the tone for how I wanted to be treated moving forward. I had been the one to always bear the weight of their problems, but now they had to start carrying some of that weight themselves. Later that afternoon, my phone rang again. This time, it was Lily, my older sister. Lily had always been the one who saw me as the dependable, responsible one, and our conversations often revolved around her venting about her career or personal life. This call, however, felt different. When I answered, I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "Sophie, I've been thinking," she started. "I know you've been there for me so many times. You've always had my back, but I also see now that maybe I've been taking you for granted. I'm really sorry for all the times I've expected you to bail me out, and I understand why you're doing what you're doing. I've got some stuff I need to deal with myself, and I'm gonna do it. I don't want to put everything on you anymore." Hearing Lily apologize was unexpected. She wasn't one to admit when she was wrong, and hearing her take responsibility for her actions was both surprising and incredibly humbling. For the first time, I felt like she truly understood what I had been going through all these years. She had taken me for granted too, assuming I would always be there to pick up the pieces, but now it was clear that the dynamic was changing. I wasn't just the family's fixer anymore. I was someone who needed to be cared for as well. "I'm proud of you, Lily," I said, my voice softening. "It's good to know that you're finally seeing things from my perspective. I've always helped because I love you, but I'm not always going to be there to fix everything. We all need to learn how to handle things ourselves." That conversation, though difficult, was another step in the right direction. For the first time, my family was realizing that I wasn't going to keep putting their needs above mine. They were starting to understand that I had my own life to live, my own dreams to chase, and I couldn't always be the one to bear the burden for them. By the end of the week, the tension had settled. My family wasn't perfect, but they were learning. They were beginning to understand the importance of boundaries and mutual respect. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight, but I knew I had made the right choice. I had taught them a lesson about gratitude, about understanding what it meant to truly support one another, not just when it was convenient, but all the time. And as for me, I felt free. I no longer felt weighed down by the constant pressure to fix everyone else's problems. I had reclaimed my own life, my own space, and I was finally living for myself, not just for them. The lesson was learned, and in the end, it was worth every uncomfortable conversation, every moment of doubt. The aftermath of setting my boundaries with my family was not as immediate or clear-cut as I had hoped. While I felt a deep sense of relief, there was also a lingering feeling of uncertainty. I had made a choice that felt right, yet I knew it was going to take time for everything to settle. This wasn't a quick fix. It wasn't about just saying no once and walking away. It was about reshaping the way I interacted with my family, and that required patience. But even as I walked through this emotional aftermath, I couldn't deny that something had shifted inside me. I felt stronger, more self-assured, and more at peace than I had in years. At first, things were tense. My family didn't immediately embrace the change. After I had refused to help them, there was a period of silence. My mother, Janet, seemed to take it the hardest. She had always relied on me, emotionally and financially, and my refusal was a harsh wake-up call for her. I could sense the confusion and hurt in her voice when she reached out again, trying to apologize, trying to convince me to change my mind, but this time I wasn't budging. "Why won't you just help us, Sophie?" she said one afternoon when she called. "You've always been there for us. You've always fixed everything. And now that we need you, you're walking away." The words stung, but I knew they were coming from a place of hurt. My mother, for all her love and care, had never understood the toll her dependence on me had taken. It wasn't that I wanted to leave her high and dry. It was that I had finally learned to put myself first. "I'm not walking away, Mom," I said, keeping my voice calm and firm. "I'm just not going to be the one to fix everything anymore. You've always relied on me, but I can't do that for you anymore. I need to be able to live my own life, too." She was silent for a long time, and I knew she was processing what I was saying. This wasn't easy for her to hear, and it wasn't easy for me to say, but I had to stick to my decision. I wasn't going to let my life revolve around meeting everyone else's needs. I needed balance. Over the next few weeks, my mother and father slowly began to accept my decision. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of tension, but I saw signs that they were starting to understand. My father, Thomas, was more reserved about the whole thing, but even he started to recognize that I couldn't continue playing the role of the family savior. He began to take more responsibility for the family finances, and it felt like, for the first time, he was stepping up in ways I hadn't seen before. The real breakthrough came when Lily, my older sister, came to visit. I hadn't heard much from her after my decision, but one weekend she called and asked if we could sit down and talk. I agreed, though I was unsure of what to expect. When she arrived at my apartment, there was an air of quiet tension between us, but also a noticeable shift in her demeanor. "Sophie, I've been thinking about what you said," Lily began, sitting down across from me. "I didn't get it at first. I thought you were just being selfish, but now I understand. You've always been the one to hold everything together for us, and we never once stopped to think about how much it was costing you. I get it now." Her words hit me harder than I expected. Lily had always been someone who took, without thinking about what was being given. She had always been the one to vent to me when things weren't going her way, but I never once heard her ask if I was okay, if I needed anything. But now, it seemed like she finally understood the emotional weight I had carried for so long. "I'm sorry, Sophie," she continued, her voice softer now. "I took you for granted. I didn't see it before, but I do now. You've been there for all of us, and we've never truly been there for you." In that moment, something inside me clicked. The pain of feeling taken for granted, the years of silently carrying the weight of my family's needs. It all started to fade. The fact that Lily was acknowledging it, understanding it, made all the difference. I didn't need to hear the apology for myself. It wasn't about that. It was about the fact that she was finally recognizing my worth and my boundaries. That was what mattered. "You don't have to apologize, Lily," I said, a sense of relief washing over me. "I'm just glad you understand. This isn't about me turning my back on the family. It's about me taking care of myself for the first time. You have to understand that I can't keep being the one who fixes everything. You need to stand up and take responsibility too." She nodded, and we sat there in silence for a while, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like the beginning of something new, not just between Lily and me, but within our entire family. It felt like they were finally beginning to see the change. And it wasn't just about me anymore, it was about all of us. A few weeks later, Jake called me again. This time, there was no desperation in his voice, no guilt trips. He wasn't asking for anything, just telling me about how he was working hard to get his life together. He had gotten a steady job and was living in a small apartment, taking care of his own bills. He wasn't perfect, but for the first time, he was trying to do things on his own. "I just wanted to let you know, Sophie," Jake said, "that I'm working on getting my life together. I know I've screwed up a lot in the past, but I'm trying now. I don't want to keep asking you for help. I just wanted to say thanks for always having my back." Those words, simple as they were a huge turning point. For years, I had been helping Jake because I felt like he needed me. But now, he was telling me he didn't need me in the same way anymore. And that made me proud. By the time the holidays rolled around, I felt like a different person. There was still love in my family, but there was also something new: respect. They respected my decision to set boundaries, and they respected my need to live my own life. I didn't have to be the one to fix everything anymore. I wasn't the only one they turned to in times of trouble, and as hard as it was to make that decision, I knew it was the right one. The most important lesson I learned was that setting boundaries doesn't mean you love your family any less. It means you love yourself enough to stop being the person who constantly sacrifices their own well-being for others. It means understanding that you can't give all of yourself if you're running on empty. And the people who truly love you will understand that. They'll learn from it, just like my family did. And as for me, I finally learned that I could still be there for them, but on my terms, and that was enough.